Hi, I'm Bronwyn Clyde.
Hi, I'm Tom Redd.
Hi, I'm Jenny Williams.
Hi, this is Holly Evans.
Hi, this is Bruce McAvaney, and you're listening to Hooked on Sport.
G'day there, everyone. Welcome to a bonus edition of Hooked on Sport. Of course, it's the SANFL Grand Final this weekend. Norwood to take on Glenelg, and I thought, what better to catch up and talk about SANFL Grand Finals than the voice of the SANFL Grand Final. He's about to call his 36th straight SANFL Grand Final. It's a remarkable record. David Wildy has joined me. David, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Hooky. You make me sound old, 36, but yeah, I've been privileged to get there, so looking forward to the game.
Can you remember your first one? I think it was back in 1989. You'd played a couple of grand finals for North Adelaide against Glenelg. You had 1 year out of grand finals, and there you are calling the 89 grand final, the famous 1-goal 8 grand final.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm glad I didn't play that extra year too. It was, I think, 14 goals to 1. Craig Burton kicked the only goal. It was just it was a horrible day. It was a windy day, and I could sense straight away Port were going to win it. And it changed my life in terms of, from that point, I retired at the end of 88 and got in the media and basically still here now. So it's a long while, but never thought I'd go this long, but still enjoying it.
Of course, you spend most of your time in the media these days alongside Malcolm Blight with Sports Day, SEN, 1629. So I know I've had an opportunity to fill in for you from time to time when you've been away. Working with Blighty must be just such a thrill.
Well, as you know, he's a different beast, and that's why I think he's been a genius as a player and as a coach. You never know what you're going to get with Malcolm. Even now, I get on really well with him. He's a very generous sort of guy. He tends to talk about himself a little bit, but hey, he's done it. He's got a statue. I haven't. Great bloke, and he'd be 72, 73, but I don't think we'll ever get a player in the history of football that will have won what he's won. He's won everything. And in fact, he said to me, if they invented another trophy or award, I'd probably win that too. So he doesn't lack any confidence.
Norwood versus Glenelg this Sunday, very early in the week. So we'll just declare Glenelg has beaten Central District in the preliminary final yesterday. So there's a bit that can play out. But what are your early thoughts on the game ahead, Norwood and Glenelg, Adelaide Oval, Sunday afternoon?
I'm sort of glad Glenelg made the grand final because I think it'd be a lot closer now than had Central's got back up. For me, Norwood are the best team. I saw them in the second semi. Spoke to Nathan Bassett, who helps out at Norwood. He said they've got a very, very good side, and there's 4 or 5 guys that should be playing AFL, even Billy Cooter and these sort of guys. So I'm hoping it's a good game. I think Norwood, the run they've had has just been perfect. Glenelg had to win 3 games, and both very good sides, though. Redlegs only lost 3 games for the year, and I think they're cherry ripe. And I'd be surprised if they don't win it. But, hey, footy throws up a lot of curveballs.
I want to touch on your history of grand finals, and we have a bit of a theme on Hooked on Sport that we sort of talk about the best 5. And so I generally do a weekly episode, my best 5 sort of hidden South Australian sports stories for the week. We're going to talk about your best 5 SANFL Grand Finals, but just give me, over the 36 or 35, about to be 36 grand finals that you've called, just a couple of the names that you've called alongside, because it's probably a pretty illustrious list.
Wow, I've called Gary Window. You remember Gary? I saw Gary at the McGarry Medal last week. He's still looking okay. Called about 800 games with KG, which is remarkable. A really good friend of mine. And Kenny's 85 now. So David Hooks called footy with. Chris Dittmar, Stephen Rowe. Tim Ginniver. Seen quite a few come and go actually over the years when I'm thinking of it. Russell Ebert was in there. Rick Davies. The list goes on, but and we're all good mates too. That's a good thing. As you know, sport, you stay mates with everyone, and they're all still really good friends. So
let's get into your top 5, Wilds. How do you want to do it? Do you want to do it chronologically? I mean, I don't think we need a 5-1 here.
No, I reckon I just picked out 5, and I'll go the order that I'd picked them out with. Not the first one that comes to mind was 2002. Sturt beat Central's hot favourite. Brent Phillips is coaching Sturt. They kicked 5 goals in the first quarter and win by 47 points, and that in itself was outstanding. Barnaby French was fabulous. But what happened after, about 5 days later, the Bali bombing occurs, and I left straight after the grand final to go to America. I'm coming out of a lift at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and I hear the news that the Bali bombings and half of the Sturt team are dead. That's what we got told. half are dead. I think, geez. So I knew a lot of the boys too that played there. And then we did a bit of research, and a lot had been burnt. We knew a couple had died, North Melbourne involved, and it was just a shocking time. You feel so helpless, and then you look on the TVs everywhere in the world, there you see the Sari Club burning, and you think, oh, these guys are in there, and it was just horrible. And a lot of those guys haven't recovered. You know, you get Julian Burns was there, Tim Weatherall, some horrific burns. It was just so the grand final was fantastic for Sturt. I think it was their 13th grand final win, and beating and upsetting Central's only lost 2 games that year. But the aftermath is something, whenever you talk about Sturt winning that premiership, I connect it to Bali. Yeah. And so that for me was a significant event, and thankfully the casualty list wasn't as bad, but a lot of guys still having nightmares over that day.
My recollection of it, it was before you really had a great understanding of how to operate with internet and that instantaneous information. And I still remember the Josh Deegan story, and my family, my neighbours who were very friendly with the Deegan family, just sitting by the phone waiting for what turned out to be the worst possible information. And I'm still struck by watching the television one night, still not quite understanding what had happened, and seeing Tim Weatherall walk up the runway at the airport, if you like, up that gangplank there, and to his family, and just absolutely distraught. And that was where it really hit home for me, what a profound, devastating effect this was going to have on the football club. And it is quite remarkable, even despite, as you say, so many people have had such long-term repercussions of that this football club remains as vibrant as it has been. It's got over all of its financial issues, and here it is, one of the really strong football clubs in SANFL footy, the Double Blues.
Yeah, I think Brendan Phillips, the coach, didn't go at the last minute too. He thought, let the players. So, he could easily have been involved himself. Bob Marshall was the official that died with Josh Deegan, and Tim Weatherall wrote a book about it. But, yeah, they just go hand in hand. It's well understood, but you think you can be on the top of your game, and 4 or 5 days later you're not here. It shows how brittle life can be, but that was one that stands out for me. 2002, Sturt by 47.
Sturt by 47. Let's move on to one of the early ones of your career, which was famous again, not so much for the grand final itself, but for everything going on around it, which was 1990, where Port Adelaide took on Glenelg, and the spectre of all of it was Port's attempt to get into the AFL.
A remarkable game. Port Adelaide, I think, won by 15 points, but Scott Hodges was, I think, 4 or 5 goals behind Rick Davies, who'd kicked 151 in a year. And Rick Davies is calling the game with us. And it was a good game of footy. Half-time, or just before half-time, Scott Hodges limps off with what appears to be an ACL, like really hobbling, and Jumbo's up there thinking his record's going to be blown. And then all of a sudden he's jumping around the box, excited again, the big fella as he did. Then lo and behold, after half-time, Scott Hodges limps out, kicks 4 goals in the second half, and breaks his record by 2. But the reason 1990 stands out, that's the best year I've ever seen any player play for one season with Scott Hodges. Not just the fact he kicked 150 goals, but it was also the year that Port were trying to get into the AFL, Bruce Weber, and the tension down at Albert. I remember Hodges kicked 11, 13, 12 and 10 or something in about a 4-game stretch, and 3 were at Albert. And we called one of the games, and I don't even remember Hooky, but KG got attacked as he's leaving Albert and try and go to Channel 9 footy show. So I'm calling the game, and I'm trying to call the fight and the game, and people didn't realise he had to go. He wasn't trying to, to get out of it, but guy spat on him, some bloke kicked him, and thankfully he got out there alive. And after the game, we were being rung from all around Australia. I remember Ron Brassey giving us a call, coming on, talking about what's happening and what's the atmosphere like, the electricity, and that day will stand in my mind forever. But the culmination was Port Adelaide, I think, was their backs to the wall. They win the grand final. Hodges breaks the record. It was George Fiacci won the Jack Oatey medal that year. It wasn't so much the game, but it was all the drama around it. Once a bit like the Bali bombing we spoke about, the build-up and it was just incredible. And I think Cornsey went in and made his famous statement after. Of course, Graham becomes coach of the Crows and that. But, yeah, it was a wonderful year, 1990. It really was.
Well, through that period, up until the beginning of the birth of the Adelaide Crows, there were just some amazing grand finals. 1984, I'm sure you'd remember the three between North Adelaide and Glenelg. What a wonderful trilogy that was. The following year was another amazing grand final, in some cases for all the wrong reasons, but you've listed 1991. Take us through it, North Adelaide versus West Adelaide.
Well, I have. That was the third grand final. Of course, we got the second and third, and that was the bloodbath, the famous bloodbath. And if you remember, Daryl Hart had played 18 games for the Crows, but was made eligible for North Adelaide to play, and they targeted him. A guy called Simpson who'd played at North Adelaide was niggling him, and just. I don't know whether he was just punching him or whatever, but Daryl kicked 4 goals in the first quarter, and he said something to Stephen Sims, this bloke, it's just on my back all the time, you do something about it. Early in the second quarter, ball goes towards the boundary in front of the scoreboard, ball goes out of bounds, and Simpson just relaxes, and Simsy comes in and hits him with a big haymaker at the back of the head, carried off, concussed, and that was just all in brawls. For the rest of the game, there's 11 players reported, 15 different charges. There's pictures of Simsy with both his eyes. You couldn't even see it. He got attacked after that. Stephen Sims wouldn't worry about that, but it's probably the most brutal and spiteful game I've ever seen. And it turned because of that incident. Tony Modra played in that game, and North Adelaide won by 73 points. So just Daryl Hart got the Jack Oatey medal. But it's just, I don't know what your thoughts or recollection of that, but it was nasty. It was a hot day. Westies had come from 5th to a grand final, North a hot favourite, and all West tried to do was bash him, and it didn't work. And in there, North Adelaide had a very, very good win. Sean Tasker actually stood Tony Modra and beat him that day, but the fights are unbelievable. And, guys, if they did that now, you'd be banned for a year. They're throwing punch after punch after punch, and they're all after Simsy, and they took their eye off the ball, and it cost West Adelaide. But incredible game. I know Lee Wick had to come out and defend the SANFL, and it was front page everywhere, all around Australia. I actually put a tape on the other day because I knew I was going to have a chat to you, and it was just as vicious when I saw the replay as what I remember in my mind. It was horrible.
So my recollection of it, and I've got a bit of an inside story here, but I played some football with Matthew Simpson about 5 years after that. We played a season together at Kapunda in the Barossa Light and Gawler League, and he actually told me the story that he was in the rooms at half time, and this is the old football park change rooms where there wasn't great facilities to segregate people from, the medical issues and those sorts of things. And so there was Kevin Morris trying to give his speech to the team at half time, and Matthew's on a medical bench and he's still convulsing and, quite seriously. And I think that was where, I just remember Dean Schumann, one of those hard-nosed defenders that West Adelaide had. I don't know if you remember.
And Blythe was the other one too. He came, 2 Westies guys, and they went in and tried to stick up. Schumann might in number 13, but as soon as Simpson got hit, he was in there up against the fence trying to bash Simsy's. It was it's just amazing, really. And there was history though with Simpson, and he was trying to do a job on Daryl Hart, and Hart he played the game of his life. 4 goals first quarter, 7 for the game. North win easy. And
Tim Perkins, I think, was amazing off of half-back as well, I seem to remember. He played a wonderful game. So some fascinating games. Let's move on to one of the great celebrations. And we've seen the Central District Football Club, of course, first came into the competition in 1964, had never... got close a few times, but had never been a premier until 2000, and that was one of the great ones that you called, Wilt.
Yeah, well, 95 and 96, they made the grand final, got beaten by Port Adelaide. Even at I think the second semi, they played extra time, and the team that won, Port won and got in the grand final. So they'd had a lot of heartache and heartbreak, and Centrals were like everybody's second side. You want them to win, the Cinderella story. Then they recruited the Gowans boys. They had a very, very tough, strong side. And it wasn't a great game of footy once again. I think 22 points might have been the margin against the Eagles. James Gowans won the Jack Oatey, and Jonas coached Centrals. And, of course, they went on to play win another 8 out of the next 10 years. And Gowans boys played in 9. But I think just for footy history, to see their first one, to actually call their first one, didn't know that I'd be calling them every year for the next decade, but it was really good to see Elizabeth's always been a town that you can associate with the battlers and even the Poms that came in the early days and worked at Holden. And I think it was good for football at the SANFL that finally Centrals, who came into the comp in the mid-60s and being close a couple of times, get their first win.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It really did develop a pride in the northern suburbs of Adelaide. And I've got to be honest with you, 1964, ironically enough, South's last flag. It'd be great to see South back and competitive again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they've got, I don't know, just don't seem to be able to get there. 1991, they finished top of the ladder the year we just spoke about the bloodbath, but they bombed out in straight sets under John Reid. Just can't get it right. I'd love to see South Adelaide win a premiership. A lot of good players have come out of South Adelaide. They've gone to the AFL, but they don't seem to be able to keep them. And, yeah, I think the league needs a stronger South Adelaide as well, and even West Adelaide to get back where they were. But, yeah, the old doggies, we showed a bit this year. They bombed out in the finals, but a lot better year under Paul Thomas.
Yeah, I've got a bit of time for South. Jared Wright, the coach, they've extended him for 2 more years. Jeff Baines is the new president down there. He's synonymous with success in football. They picked a lot of kids this year, Wilds, and I think you'll find they actually moved on a lot of senior guys that they just thought, yeah, probably going to be better at another club, and we're going to start bringing through some kids. So, yeah, hopefully we see South Adelaide turn the corner in the next couple of years, because I think it's a better competition, and we've seen South in some final series in the last few years. It's better competition when South are in amongst it, aren't they?
I think Hooky too, in the last few years, they've lost players to mid-season drafts or just before the season started, and you're losing a ruckman, this type of thing. Things haven't gone their way. Under Ronnie Fuller, they had a bit of success. They sort of played okay, but yeah, I think you're right. SANFL needs a strong South Adelaide too.
Let's wrap up with one more, and the one you've identified is a fascinating story. Again, probably not so much for the grand final itself, even though it was an absolute cracker, but it was the famous year of the 19th man. The North Adelaide Football Club somehow, for 5.5 minutes, had 19 players on the field in the preliminary final against the Eagles, and somehow or other went on and won the flag despite incredible tribunal hearings. I think there was potential Supreme Court injunctions.
Yeah, I think under Josh Carr, so what happens at the prelim, they play an extra man for 5 or 6 minutes and no one really caught on. The North bench did. They were trying to get the player off, and finally he comes off, and Eagles, fairly close game, Eagles lose it. I think it might have been only a kick of 5 or 6 points or whatever. And the whole week was spent on whether North played the grand final, whether it gets turned over, in the courts. And I think one of the top Silks came out and said no, he believes it was an accident, a mistake, didn't cost the Eagles. And so North Adelaide get through. But imagine, I think it was only up until Thursday night. I think Eagles was still training in case, they had to play in the grand final. Norwood were hot favourite. I remember it's a fantastic game of footy. Both teams kicked over 100 points. Mitch Grigg kicked 6 goals from the centre for Norwood in the losing side. He wins the Jack Oatey medal. Sort of put Josh Carr on the map as a coach, and now he's obviously going to be destined for higher honours. But yeah, it was a game. It was a skillful game. It was a great game. But it's all these grand finals we spoke about have had drama either after or prior or during. And this one was a horrible week when you're a player not knowing if you're going to be able to suit up. And so full marks to North Adelaide. They got their minds back on the job. It was bad luck for the Eagles. It really was. But I mean, 19 men, it hasn't happened too often, has it, where you play 19? So that, and of course North Adelaide, they copped a bit after that. I don't think they gave a stuff, to be honest. They won the premiership, who cares, and the rest is history. And that was a more recent grand final, only 5 or 6 years ago, so that one was sticking. And of course the Roosters won it, so good for me.
It is amazing, isn't it, when you just listen to you talk about those 5, and we've missed out 31 and all of the incredible stories, not just so much in the grand final but surrounding it as well. It's been a pretty amazing competition. You obviously have a deep relationship with it. I love watching it. Never was a good footballer myself, but it is a fascinating chat. Hey, all the very best for grand final number 36, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Hooky, and you've kept me in the limelight. I think you've done 31, 32, 33, 34th in your column. It's sad that's no longer there, because I think what you've done for sport in South Australia has been remarkable, and you're given promotion to sports that don't get promotion, even though it's Everyone's good at, it doesn't matter what level. You do country stuff, you've done the girls, you've done the boys, you've done minority sports, you've done major sports. So, yeah, you've done a great job then. It looks like you're continuing to do a great job now.
Wilds, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. It'll be Norwood versus Glenelg on Sunday afternoon at Adelaide Oval. If you can't get to the game, you get onto SEN 1629 or on the SEN app. David Wildy, the voice of the SANFL Grand Final, will be there doing his Grand Final number 36. Hope you've enjoyed this little bonus episode of Hooked on Sport as we look forward to the SANFL Grand Final this week. David, thank you.
Thanks, Hooky.
Thanks so much for listening to my chat with David Wildy. I thought it was fascinating. I just need to make this point, a little footnote on the back end of it. David and I spoke on Monday morning, the 16th of September. We were both aware of the very, very sad death of Tim Noonan, a premiership player with North Adelaide in 1991. Tim passed away after a significant stroke in Japan. We are all desperately sad about it. We didn't mention it in that episode because despite the fact that we were aware of his passing, it wasn't official at the time, and we just didn't feel it was appropriate to make mention of it until such time as it had been confirmed by his family and those closest to him. Tim died at 51 years of age, and I know this very well because I'm also 51, and Tim and I attended primary school and high school together. We must have played 200 games of football together between the ages of, say, 7 and 17. So it's a very, very sad event for myself and my family, but of course more so for Tim's own family. I pass on my deepest sympathies to his father, Michael, his mother, Meredith, his sister, Sally, and of course his wife and kids. They would be impossibly sad about this terrible, terrible situation. We pass on our love and deepest thoughts with them, and we say Vale, Tim Noonan.